Today we are making dilly beans, which is the weirdest name in the world for pickled green beans. You know how long it took me to find this recipe? It took me a while. Because when I look up dill pickles, I look up dill pickles, or I look up pickles or cucumbers. I had to look up beans to find pickled beans, and then it referred me to dilly beans because you put dill in it. Dilly. Oh my gosh. What a pain in the butt. Anyway, dilly beans. This is the stuff I'm using. Here are my pots, my jars from the dishwasher. But I've got about 6 pounds of green beans I'm processing. I do not grow my green beans, but my neighbor does, so I got these from my neighbor. We got about 6 pounds beans here, which if we look at the recipe calls for 2 pounds. So we're going to be tripling this recipe. It's really straightforward. Salt, vinegar, water. So it's a 50-50 between vinegar and water. Calls for some cayenne pepper. I have these peppers that I grow each year and then I dry a bunch. So we'll throw some of those bad boys in. 4 cloves garlic. You guys know I'm at a banner garlic this year. 4 heads dill. I do not have heads of dill right now, but I do have... Well, I've got this jar of Dina DeLuca, but it actually has my own grown dill seed in there. I just reuse the jar. And pickle crisp, which I do not use. So right now I'm trimming off the ends of the green beans. I'm washing the jars, and then I'm going to put the brine together in this saucepan. And I got my lids and rings. I know you don't have to heat those up anymore, but I still do because I like it. Oh, look, I got... kosher dill pickles fermenting. Yeah, so good. Alright, so you probably don't need to watch me do this, which is take a green bean, look at the tiny little end and cut it off, and then look at the other end and cut that off. So I'm going to do mine in quarts, which is this jar. You could do it in pints, which is this jar, but let's see, let's get a good green bean here. This seems like a better stuffer than having to take this, put the bean in, and then cut the damn thing in half, right? Or 3/4, and then you get those tiny little pieces, forget about it. Plus, have you ever had a Bloody Mary, with or without booze, but a Bloody Mary made by a really great place, and it's like a salad they put in there. They put in pickled beans and asparagus and maybe a prawn, and oh my gosh, there's just so much stuff in there. Anyway, this is one of the bases of those, so I like my long for the Bloody Mary. Alright, go in the jar just like that. So I gotta get back to cutting. Here we go. Something else I forgot to mention is that if you're using these fresh beans like I am, and you've got kids and you don't want to use knives, because they're fresh, they just snap. I mean, so you can just break off the top and the bottom with your hands. Alright, so we got all these things snapified and snapped off and into their individual... is that even worth... I don't know. I'll throw it over there for fun. So I may not have 6 pints worth or quarts worth of beans, but we'll give it a shot. Let's see. I was supposed to have 6 pounds. After I actually weighed them, it turns out it was 5 point something pounds, and that wasn't the farm's fault. That was just my husband picked up what was left last night. They have like an honor system, and that's all that was left. But you know what? We're going to do what we can with what we got. So we've got everybody all snapped off here, and we're waiting for the jars to finish, and the brine has just come to a boil, and I don't need that to keep boiling, so I'm going to turn that off. I'll take these up to temperature. Got my garlic. Got to get my measuring tools out for that. But let's go outside and look at the steam canner. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to add some water to it, and I've got all this water in here, and we're in a drought, so I'm going to water a plant. All right, you guys have seen my outdoor setup before. I haven't used it in a few days, so I'm getting neglectful. Got some compost here, empty bucket, various tools. So this is my harvest. It's got the temperature gauge in the top, so I know when to start timing. All right, so it's got a rack in here. It's a regular water bath rack, but if you turn it upside down, this is how you can turn this vessel into a steam canner. But what I need to do is bring up the water to the bottom of this rack. That's how much water I need. You can use this canner as a regular steam bath canner too. I mean, excuse me, a regular water bath canner. Like this one where you've got the water, you know, all the way up to the top. And I really need to pull this out. It's rusting. You let people borrow your equipment. Look at what happens. All right, I'm going to dry that out and get the rust off of there. So technically, you can bring the water all the way up here, flip this over, you know, like that. Use it as a regular canner. I'm going to put your jars in there and then slowly empty them in. But I'm not doing that. I'm going to use it as a steamer canner. It's meant to be. So I've got the water all the way up to the bottom. Put my lid back on. And when my jars get closer, I'm going to turn this on to a low boil. And can you see how much difference, right, that is? The water up to here takes a lot longer to boil than water down there. And then we'll look at the knob to tell us how, if we're in the appropriate amount of temperature. And then we'll time it, and it will be beautiful. We don't have to worry about anything because we've got something we can refer to. We don't have to do that by ourselves. Okay, so I've got it all set up on my rack, and yeah, let's go inside and wait for things to come together. And I'm going to put this bad boy in the sun. Well, no, I should really wash it, get all that rust off. Okay, back inside. And my friends, the jars have finished processing in the oven. I just turned my steamer canner on low. Let's get to packing some jars. Alright, you guys, so this is how I do it. I'm going to take a jar out of the dishwasher. It's very hot, very steamy. Take my jar over to my beans, and I like to tilt the jar a little sideways, but you know what, I already forgot, I want a clove of garlic in the bottom of this, so let me grab a clove or two, some garlic crazy, and a little bit of dried hot peppers. Put them in like that. I'm going to shift this kind of sideways and put the beans in like this. This jar is extremely hot. My hands have improved through the years, so I can handle more and more heat the more elderly I become. So what I want to do is pack in as many beans as I can in here, because right, the more beans, the less brine, the less waste. Of course I could use the brine for something else too, but I think you hear me. Alright, I got some going sideways in there, I think. That's alright, we'll just keep going. Keep going. Now you could just do this straight up and down. Pick it up once in a while, give it a good smack. Alright, so pack, pack, pack. This is a great recipe for people that are starting out canning, and I'll tell you why. First of all, you don't have to cook what's going on inside, right? You just got to heat up that brine. Secondly, there's no sugar in this, so you're not going to get that sticky rim that can sometimes spoil a recipe. There are dilled green bean recipes that have sugar in them. I avoid recipes with sugar when I can. I think I'm at just about at the max here, what I can get in there safely, because I don't want, right? I don't want that. Maybe I can get them all in there, as many as we can. We need a 1/2 inch of headspace. That's not good. See that little thing on there? It's probably a blossom. All right, so now we're going to take this over here. Dun, dun, dun. I got my hot lens. That. All right, so now I've got my spices. Let's talk a little bit about the spices. In the recipe, it calls for 1 teaspoon of dill, like a dill flour, and then some dill. This is dill. Can you see the little sticks and stuff in there? This is dill that I harvested. This is actually seed that I grow my own dill with. But this recipe does not include these other spices. One thing that I believe and that I've learned over the years is that you can mess with a few things in canning. One of them is the spices, but that's like one of the only things you can mess with. All right, boiling brine. Let me get something. So what I'm really saying about that is that I've gone off the farm with this recipe. It's not, it's from the Bald Book, but I've obviously changed a few things up. So follow at your own risk, do your own research. But the only thing that I've changed is some of the spices. All right, so what we need to do is get a 1/2 inch of headspace. I'll show you a little trick. So you know these rings that go up here? Oh, now this is really hot. More hot. I'm going to pick this up. So the bottom ring is 1 inch. And then you know how these they twist down, right? The second ring, halfway through the second ring is about 1/2 inch. More or less. Let's debubble. Why do we debubble? We debubble to get air out of there. Air is always hiding in there. What happens when you debubble, and as you can see clearly here, the level of fluid that I had in here has now dropped significantly. I was low. I was at about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, but now I'm significantly below a full inch. So I'm going to add a little bit more brine. And can somebody please make a cup that actually has a spout that works? No matter what you do, these, you know, anyway, they always dribble everywhere. Now what am I doing? I'm checking the rim again. I checked it before I went in to the dishwasher, but I'm making sure there's no cuts, there's no cracks. Taking some clear vinegar. I'm going around the rim because I want it to be sticky, or not sticky. I want it to be clean and free of debris. And then I get a lid from my pot over here. These two are stuck together. There we go. And a ring. So lid, ring. Fingertip tight. Don't reef down on that. You reef down on that, you're going to have problems. You're going to get jar breakage. All right. So 1 jar done. I'm going to do another jar very fast, and then we're going to go out and put them into the steamer. I just ran out here real quick before I brought those jars out to look at two things. First of all, I want to make sure it's boiling away. And the second thing I'm going to do is look at my guide here. Can you see how the red dial is into that very dark green area? It may even look black to you. That means at my part of sea level, which is, I'm like at 800 feet above sea level, that this is now okay to put jars in, and once they're in here and that continues to boil, then I'm going to be okay for canning. That is going to drop when I put the jars in because they're not boiling any longer, but that tells me everything is functioning correctly. It's right where it's supposed to be, and I'm going to go get those jars. I'll be back in a second. Right, when you start to put the jars in a canner, don't put them side by side next to each other. Put them crisscross or across from each other. You want to keep balance, right? So I have, let's just pretend that this jar is noon and this is 6 o'clock. Then I'll do 3 and 9, and then I'll fill in crossways. So I'm going to go do those other jars. I'm putting this lid back on to retain that heat and get those jars that are now no longer boiling. It's going to slowly bring them up to temperature as well. So when we come back, we'll have everything in there that needs to be in there. Alright, so much for being done. We've had a minor hiccup. I was going to say that we had a problem, but this is no problem. This is just, it's not a problem at all. But remember how we were going to do 4 of these, or 5 of the quarts, and then we were going to do a couple pints with this leftover amount. But what I find is that there's not enough to fill up this last one. And I could put, brine in there up to the top and just do these little ones and then have another jar full of these. But when you look at that, doesn't it look like it might fill more than one of these? Let's cut our cost down, and what we're just going to do is take advantage of this situation here, right? This is not a problem. This is just, it's not a problem. Some people would freak out over something so tiny. But what we're going to do is fill up this jar with the babies. The babies! So it's going to have some long ones in it. It's going to have some babies in it. That'll be a fun surprise for whoever opens it up for their Bloody Mary and they pull out meep. But you know what? Roll with it. It is not a big deal. Alright, got that last jar finished. Packed up pretty well, didn't it? Look at my little Tide pepper. Those are hot as you know what. Hot. Hot. Alright, let's put it in the steam canner. Put it over here, 3 o'clock position. The other one's at 9. Alright, so what we have here is a small boil. But we don't have to worry about how much it's boiling. We want to make sure that it is boiling. We're putting this top back on. And you remember how that red line was in the black zone and it's no longer there? So we need to get that back into the black zone. And then we're going to start our 10-minute timer. See you in 10 minutes. Alright, we're up to 10 minutes. Everything's still boiling away. I'm still in my proper zone. Here's a secret for you. Even with water bath canning, when you're done, turn off the canner and let it sit for a minimum of 5 minutes with the lid on. Let it be. Let it get happy with itself. Let the pressure drop. You don't want to suddenly lift that lid when there's 212 Fahrenheit degree temperature, everything in there, and suddenly, it's 100, well, 90 today, that 90 degree heat or coolness comes in, or even more cool if you're in your house. So let it be for a little while, let it marinate in there and be happy. Then we'll take the lid off. Then we'll move them over to the table to cool enough to take inside. So be back in, I guess, about 4 or 5 minutes. Alright, timer just went off. We're going to come over here and take a peek. We are just falling out of that pressure range, and I actually gave it 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is take a towel and I'm going to remove the lid, but I'm not going to move it toward me. If I pick up the lid like this and move it toward me, all that steam is going to come out and burn the hell out of my arm. So you can move it to the side or away from you. Don't get it burned. Alright. Let's take a peek. Everybody seems happy. I love a 10-minute process time. It's awesome, isn't it? Alright, so now I'm going to remove them from there and I'm going to put them on this towel. One at a time. Let's back you up. A little bit. Picture right there. There you are. Old school gripper. Yeah, by the way, this is the way you hold it. A lot of people, I don't know, they put this upside down, but the rubber end goes on the jar. These ends that roll go in your hand. This one happens to be from the 20s, so I'm sure there's newfangled ones that I'm just not aware of. This is my grandma's. Alright. One more. Tut, tut, tut. Alright, so preliminary. Everybody sealed preliminarily. We're just going to, but this one is kind of convex, so, oh, there they go. They're going to start cooling down. So we're just going to leave those there to be happy for several hours, and then we'll move them in the house. And I think everybody looks great. So anyway, dilly beans, that's how you do it. Or as I like to say, pickled green beans. So let me know if you have any questions. Oh, yeah, in a steam canner. Oh, there goes another one. Okay. See you later.